That's why I like to call it what? The gunshot method. The gunshot method is you remain patient. Imagine you have a brick wall right in front of you. This brick wall is stopping you from seeing what's through and where the gold is. In order for you to get to the gems, you need to make sure that this wall is down. And this wall, in this case, are patterns that you need to understand. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Alhamdulillah wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walahu wa ba'd. In our previous class, we covered فَالَّذِي يُعْرَبُ بِالْحَرَكَاتِ أَرْبَعَةُ أَنْوَاعٍ. We looked at أقسام المعربات. Basically, المعربات قسمان. We said those which allow to have change at the end, they are of two types. فقلنا أن الأول, the first one is what? الذي يعرب بالحركات. Those words which their inflection is by harakat, fatha, kasra, dhamma. Whereas the next one that we have to look at today is والذي يعرب بالحروف. The second type, or the second part of this topic, those which their inflection is by letters. It's not harakat, not fatha, dhamma, kasra. Actually, it's by harakat, by huruf. Now, when you understand that, it becomes much easier for you to use the words. So let's read the Musannif, what he said, rahimahullah ta'ala, and then break it down بإذن الكريم. قال المصنف رحمه الله تعالى نفعنا الله به وبعلومه في الدارين. والذي يعرب بالحروف أربعة أنواع: التثنية، وجمع المذكر السالم، والأسماء الخمسة، والأفعال الخمسة، وهي يفعلان وتفعلان ويفعلون وتفعلون وتفعلين. فأما التثنية فترفع بالألف وتنصب وتخفض بالياء. وأما جمع المذكر السالم فيرفع بالواو وينصب ويخفض بالياء. وأما الأسماء الخمسة فترفع بالواو وتنصب بالألف وتخفض بالياء. وأما الأفعال الخمسة فترفع بالنون وتنصب وتجزم بحذفها. أيوة. Even though we did read this in the previous class, in this class, because we're focusing on this main topic, you realize that we still have to read it again. Now, there's a lot to cover in it, to be very honest. But as we are just trying to cover for the beginners, we're literally just focusing on those who haven't done grammar at all in their lives. This text can be expanded even more, and I would always repeat that. Why? So they can be very clear for you. These durus that we're having right now is to just clarify and make easy for you how grammar looks like, what to expect, and how you can use it in your day-to-day either speaking or reading, or when in your journey of Arabic, inshallah ta'ala. Lakin when we complete it, بإذن الله الكريم, we might have a follow-up of this again, but next time it wouldn't be the same as now, because remember, we're not addressing the beginners anymore. We're addressing those who already have a grasp of Arabic grammar in some form or so. So inshallah ta'ala, if we go to the dars itself immediately, والذي يعرب بالحروف أربعة أنواع. And those which their i'rab is with huruf, there are four types. Al-Musannif rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions over here, what does he says, المعربات بالحروف إما التثنية، إما جمع المذكر السالم، وإما الأسماء الخمسة أو الأفعال الخمسة. Any one of these, okay? What is that supposed to mean? Pardon me. التثنية is the dual. Okay? جمع المذكر السالم is the masculine plural. Whereas الأسماء الخمسة, you notice the 5 particular nouns. Al-Af'al al-Khamsa, remember when I told you the issue of scales, these 5 particular verbs, they're actually just examples to show you that you can apply this rule in other types of verbs which are in a similar scale, such as these ones. which are in similar scales as these ones. أليس كذلك? We said that these are scales. لذلك في بعض الكتب النحوية, in some grammar books, you'll find that they're not just mentioned as al-af'al al-khamsah, they're actually mentioned as al-amthilatu al-khamsah. Al-amthilatu al-khamsah. If you look at the whiteboard here, al-amthila al-khamsah, نعم, al-amthila al-khamsah. The 5 examples, the 5 examples. What is that supposed to mean? Examples of what? They are scales. Understood? They are scales which guide you towards how you can use other words. So for example, if I have the word, I say, if I want to say I am going, or we are, not we are going, you are going, for the plural, you are going, you are going. We have from the 5 types which I prepared here in the notes for you. Where are they? Aywa. Shuf. I prepared these examples, like in this is not all I want. Look, al-af'al al-khamsa, na'am. في حالة الرفع, how do they look like when they're in the state of رفع? في حالة النصب, how do they look like? في حالة الجزم, how do they look like? And we'll look at some types of i'rabat, how you can literally understand the i'rab, how they work. Basically, how to use the inflections around. So to show you, they are يفعلون, تفعلون, يفعلان, تفعلان, تفعلين. Now we said we want to say you are going, basically for the male in plural form. أليس كذلك? So let's say there's 3, Ali, Muhammad and Ahmed. Or there is Ali, Muhammad, Ali, Ahmed and Yusuf. Okay, these are people I know actually. Now I can think of their names quickly. Them 3, when they are going, what would you say? You would say أنتم تذهبون, you are going. Now let's write this down. أنتم تذهبون. شوف. أنتم تذهبون. You are going. أليس كذلك? Now this تذهبون is literally under what? تفعلون. Listen to how similar they sound. Listen to how similar they sound. تفعلون. I don't want to get into the detail. Why are you not saying تفعلين, تفعلون? No. I don't want to go into the scales. As I said, that is something related to what? Arabic morphology. This one, we're focused on what? Arabic grammar. I don't want to mix between things, but I'm just giving you an example so you can see clearly. أنتم تذهبون. Now when it comes to the i'rab rule, once you understand that, okay, the i'rab rule for this, the i'rab rule, yes, the i'rab rule for this, for the al-af'al al-khamsa, the 5 particular verbs, you notice, okay, I can apply these same rules in all of the other types. That's why I like to call it what? The gunshot method. The gunshot method is you remain patient. Imagine you have a brick wall right in front of you. This brick wall is stopping you from seeing what's through and where the gold is. Now this is what happens. In order for you to get to the gems, you need to make sure that this wall is down. And this wall, in this case, are patterns that you need to understand. Once you understand the patterns, those patterns literally break down themselves. You can apply every single word that you want in Arabic. Some words you will not understand, but you'll be able to use the words. You'll be able to use the words at your, basically whenever you want. That's when it becomes easier for you. The more you read, you end up realizing you don't need harakat, you don't need to be something to be explained to you. In fact, it gives you guidance to know, okay, I found this word here, and then you can find it in a dictionary, like Lisanul Arab, or maybe it depends, but I don't want to mention Tajul Arus and all of that. المعجم الوسيط, because those are, one of them is very small, the other one is very big, and Lisan al-Arab is not small either, but it's the most decent for طلاب العلم. Okay, so in that reason you end up realizing that it gives you the ability to have a grasp of the Arabic words in the entirety. That's how it works. But we're not going to do that now. We're going to do that as we move along, inshallah ta'ala, in the future, for you to have a clear understanding what we're talking about. So if you look carefully, يفعلون, أيوة, يفعلون تفعلون يفعلان تفعلان تفعلين. It's very simple, وليس كذلك. لكن when it comes to application, تذهبون أنتم تذهبون. If I use, for example, in this case, if I am to use يفعلون, which means they are going, they go. And 3 men, أليس كذلك, we're referring to 3 men in this case, you would say هم يفعلون. And there's a very good example in the Quran. When Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says, وَهُمْ عَلَى مَا يَفْعَلُونَ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ شُهُودٌ. I'm going to give you a little task. Go to the Quran on Surah Al-Buruj. In Juz Amma, open وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ قُتِلَ أَصْحَابُ الْأُخْدُودِ النَّارِ ذَاتِ الْوَقُودِ إِذْ هُمْ عَلَيْهَا قُعُودٌ وَهُمْ عَلَى مَا يَفْعَلُونَ. Number 7. Ayah number 7. وَهُمْ عَلَى مَا يَفْعَلُونَ. مَا يَفْعَلُونَ. Now, in order for you to understand ma, what does ma mean? You realize we've started Al-Ājrūmiyyah bayna yadayk every Thursdays. Alhamdulillah, we've done the first dars and we're moving on. And in that first dars, we covered the meaning of ma in this case. And ma is one of those questioning tools, meaning what? Now, if you go there, you realize it's much easier for you, to put vocabulary together, come back to the grammar lessons and put grammar together, and you literally build like that. So we didn't put the 2 lessons together, we put the 2 durus together, we separated them. Grammar is a subject, Arabic vocabulary is a subject. So grab the vocabulary there, come back to grammar, combine the 2 superpowers, you end up realizing it becomes much easier. Basically, it gives you the strength. Okay? Inshallah ta'ala. وَهُمْ عَلَى مَا يَفْعَلُونَ. What they are doing. Now, يَفْعَلُونَ in this case, you notice is they are doing. They are doing. يَذْهَبُونَ, if you put يَذْهَبُونَ in this scale, you find what? They are going. Now that makes sense for the al-af'al al-khamsa. لذلك, that's why they are called al-amthilatu al-khamsa. The next thing that we have that I want us to look at, we said that we have the what? The masculine plural noun. That is easy. That's a noun. We talked about verbs. This one we said the 5 particular verbs, and I will add literally scales. They are scales actually. But we also have al-asma'ul khamsa, the 5 particular nouns. These ones as well, they need a little bit of some inaya. They need some sort of explanation so that you can understand them. Okay, so for example, with the at-tathniya and jam'u al-mudhakkar al-salim, nothing changes. Basically, there's only one type. You understand the concept itself, how it works? Khalas, it's one concept. But with the al-asma' al-khamsa and al-af'al al-khamsa, it's like there's 5 of them. The concepts might be the same, but you need to know all of those 5. أليس كذلك? Now, when you look at this chart, when they're in a state of rafa', how do they look like? When they're in a state of nasb, how do they look like? When they're in a state of jar, how do they look like? When in a state of jazm, how do they look like? Now, we don't want to go into that right now. What we want to do is similar to al-af'al al-khamsa, let's do the same for al-asma' al-khamsa, the 5 particular nouns. Although in كتب بعد هذا المتن, after this matn, the next mutun that come, they explain to you that it's not 5 anymore, they're actually 6. And there's one missing, but remember, this is a beginner's text. It's a beginner's text. We don't want to go into too much detail. In a state of rafa', nasb, jar, that should be the least of our worry. Our main worry is to be, how many types are there? There is abu, akhu, hamu, fu, dhu. If you go in the previous classes, we did cover this. أليس كذلك? Abu, saying Abu Fulan. Akhu, the brother of Fulan. Hamu, the in-law, father-in-law of a daughter. Okay, basically your wife, your father to your wife, for example, if you're married. And I advise you, if you're not married, to get married, inshallah. There's a lot of khair in it. Fu, your mouth. Dhu, owner of. Okay, owner of. I hope I did not make that mistake here, because I was al-asma'ul khamsa. I was providing, yes, I did not make it. You see, for example, now over here, this is a summary. This is a summary to provide you with how they work in terms of the i'rab. Like to give you some sort of breakdown for the 5 particular nouns and 5 particular verbs. You notice that we had to literally give them charts of their own separately, so you can understand, okay, these are the 5 types, and these are the 5 types, and this is how they look like, inshallah. Where would you find this? Where would you find this? You can see below, bi'idhnillah al-kareem. You either go to our mailing list, or you go to Telegram, inshallah ta'ala, join over there. Also, for any one of them, you'll find the notes uploaded there, bi'idhnillah al-kareem, and you can use the notes, scribble on them, print them out, use them on your own at your own discretion, inshallah ta'ala, and it would help you a lot, bi'idhnillah al-kareem. So al-asma'ul khamsa, we said Abu, but notice this of what I did here, so that I can clarify this issue. According to even in At-Tuhfat As-Saniyah, the sharh itself of Muqaddimat Al-Ājrūmiyyah, what it explains to you, showing you that, look, this Abu cannot be on its own. Cannot be on its own. You have to add a noun after that. You have to add a noun after that, referring to who it is that you're talking about. Okay? Or sometimes it can be what, depending on the context that you're trying to provide. But in this case, when you say abuka or abuki, abuka means your father for the man, abuki means your father for the woman. Okay? Abuka. You can't say abu only. That's why even in the Quran, Allah mentions in Surah Al-Ahzab, ma kana Muhammadun, and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, it was not upon him, or he was not Aba Ahadin, the father of anyone, the father of anyone, basically the father of one, min rijalikum, from your men, the father of one of you, simple as that. But Aba Ahad, the father of anyone, he was not the father of anyone. ولكن رسول الله وخاتم النبيين وكان الله بكل شيء عليما. What do you notice? He was not the father of anyone. The father of anyone. Now when you leave it just as Abu, it wouldn't make sense. You have to add something. That's why there's the concept of compounding words. Mudafun and mudafun ilayh. We don't want to cover that as well over here, but just to clarify for you. Abuka, your father. Abaka, your father. Abika, your father. Same meaning, isn't it? But the i'rab is different. And now when you apply that same rule on the rest of the other 5, it's khalas, it's simple as that. Akhu, the brother of, akhuka, your brother. Inni ana akhuka. In the Quran, Surah Yusuf, indeed I am your brother. And the mu'akkidat, literally to show affirmation, there's so many of them. Inni, those are 2. Ana, 3. Akhuka. Okay? Hamuka. Okay? Hamuka. Fuka. Dhu malin. Now this is very clear. Al-asma'ul khamsa and al-af'alul khamsa, that's clarified. Okay, let's move further now. As we've clarified that, let's go to the i'rab of how you should expect them, bi'idhnillah al-kareem. At-tathniyah, the dual. أليس كذلك? When it is in a state of rafa', you say at-talibani. Look at this. The alif is by harf. In this case, it's through the harf. How do we provide the i'rab? When in a state of rafa' is the alif. When in a state of nasb and jar, these 2, then it's the ya. Then it is the ya. Now I want to bring this also to you so that we can cover this in a very short time. Jam'ul mudhakkar salim, the masculine plural. Okay? Al-Muslimuna, basically Muslims, 3 Muslim men and above. Okay, or it could be 3 Muslims, both genders together, so it's used as the men for the men type rather than the plural for women. The plural for women is very specific for women, but once you use for the men, it combines everyone inside. It can be just men, it can be both genders, men and women. Al-Muslimuna, Al-Muslimuna, Al-Muslimina, Al-Muslimina. In this case, look at the difference. When in a state of rafa', both al-jam'u mudhakkar salim and al-tathniya, you notice that there's a difference. Al-Talibani with an alif. Al-Muslimuna with a waw. That's simple. You know the difference, alif and waw. But over here, in a state of nasb and jar, ya, 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 ya. How do we clarify that? How do you know that this is, for example, that this is, this is a, yes. How do you know that this is a masculine plural? And how do you know that this is a muthanna or tathniya? This is how you do it. Look at the whiteboard. Look at the whiteboard. Bear with me. Naam. Ja'a at-talibani. Ja'a at-talibani. 2 students came. Okay, 2 students came. The students are the ones who did the action, hence they are in a state of raf'i in this case. Al-Talibani. Now look, the alif is different, it's simple. So what do we say? Al-Talibani, the i'rab would be, because they are the doers of the action, they are the ones that came, you would say fa'ilun marfu'un. They are the doers in a state of raf'a. وعلامة رفعه, and the alama رفعه of it being in a state of رفع الألف لأنه مثنى. Okay, in this case الألف قام مقام الضمة. The alif stood in the position of the dhamma because it's the main sign of the raf', because the dhamma is impossible to be applied in this case, but the alif has to be applied to set it very clear. So what happens? وعلامة رفعه الألف لأنه مثنى, because it is the dual. Now when it comes to when it's in a state of nasb or jar, the same applies. لكن what you need to know is this: الطالبين. In both nasb and jar. So you would say mansubun if it's mansub because of something, if it's a harf that caused it to be in that state, which causes the noun to be in a state of nasb, or maybe it's in a state of nasb because it is maf'ul, it is the victim of an action. For example, at-talibayni in this case, well, let's say ra'aytu at-talibayni. Ra'aytu means I saw. Ra'aytu at-talibayni, I saw 2 students. Anyway, I saw 2 students. Now the 2 students are the victims because they were the ones who were seen. أليس كذلك? So what do you say? مفعول به منصوب. مفعول بماذا؟ بالفعل رأيت. It is put in a state of مفعول, basically in a state of victimhood because of the action that happened to them from the one who saw them, isn't it? مفعول به منصوب. I'm sorry if this sounded quite technical. وعلامة نصبه and the sign of it being in a state of nasb الياء لأنه مثنى. Why? Because it is in a state of tathniya. It is in a state of dual. It's 2. And for it to be in a state of jar, to be in a state of jar? Let me ask you something before we move forward. And I want you to be very honest with me if you are going through these classes. If you haven't and it's your first time here, do consider subscribing, inshallah, and share this with your loved ones so they can benefit bi'idhnillah al-kareem. And if you want to take this further, inshallah ta'ala, we have opened up for our Arabic program bi'idhnillah, which we mainly focus on unlocking knowledge through the Arabic language. That's the entire mission for the academy, for Mustafa's Academy, is to use the Arabic language as a means of unlocking knowledge. You don't just study knowledge and regard yourself as a talibul ilm. You cannot consider yourself a talibul ilm if you don't have a grasp of at least some sort of Arabic that gives you the keys and mafatih lil-ulum, the keys to the knowledge. Al-Islamu kulluhu bil-Arabiyyah. The entire Islam is in Arabic. Bear that in mind. If you do not have the keys to the deen through its language, then one cannot claim to say that they are either students of knowledge or they do understand the deen very well, because they are dependent upon others who can translate it for them. There's nothing wrong with that. لِكُلِّ عِلْمٍ مِفْتَاحٍ. Every single science has its own keys. Don't forget that. Lakin what you need to realize is that even a ammi, a layman, as a Muslim, they need to have some sort of Arabic understanding, because they pray, they read Quran, so that they can have a grasp of what Allah might be telling them, at least one or two of the verses. They can ask Allah a dua, like that. When you memorize a dua, you know what does Allahumma inni as'aluka, oh Allah, indeed I ask from you, or I ask you. For example, for you to know all of that, it is Arabic. So you don't just memorize the dua, you understand the basics of the language at the very least. Lakin for those who want to take it further and understand knowledge and that, you need to have a grasp of Arabic, bi'idhnillah al-kareem. These are what we are providing you. This, inshallah ta'ala, hopefully it becomes a sadaqah jariyah. For anyone who wants to learn on their own, you can do this. But if you want first-hand help and assistance and a community with a family, then the Arabic program that we've already opened up, alhamdulillah, is the one that you can learn from. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do it alone, bi'idhnillah al-kareem. Naam. Let's carry on. مررت بالطالبين. بالطالبين. Now look, مررت بالطالبين. Same applies, لكن مجرور, you would say اسم مجرور بالباء by the باء وعلامة جره الياء لأنه مثنى. Now, if you can see, yes, مجرور بالباء وعلامة جره الياء لأنه مثنى. The question I want to ask you is, do you know the حروف الجر? حروف الجر, the word letters that literally lead a word to be in a state of jar. What are they? If you go back to the previous classes, you'll understand. What are they? Min, ila, an, ala, fi, al-ba, rubba. We said lam, kay. And also min, ila, an, ala, fi, al-ba, rubba, lam al-sababiyya. And then we also have حروف القسم الثلاثة, الواو والباء والتاء. We have all of those. Now when you study, you realize, okay, مررت بالطالبين. So what sets the difference between the مثنى and the جمع المذكر السالم? What sets the difference between them two? The مثنى is الطالي. Let me use the word al-Muslim. We can say 2 Muslims and 3 Muslims. Al-Muslim, like this, and I would say Al-Muslim. Look, Al-Muslimaini, Al-Muslimina, Al-Muslimina. What's the difference between the two? Look at this. Mim, Ya, Noon. This one, Mim, Ya, Noon. The mim before the ya, meaning the letter before the ya, has a fatha. and the letter after the ya has a kasra in this case. And the meme before the ya, which means the letter before the ya, has a kasra. And the letter after the ya has a fatha. Which one is muthanna and which one is jam'u mudhakkar salim? This one is muthanna. This one is the duo. This one is jam'ul mudhakkar salim. Jam'ul mudhakkar salim. This one is it. Understood? This one is jam'ul mudhakkar salim. So what's the secret between the two? Jam'ul mudhakkar salim will be like this. The letter before it has a kasra, before the ya basically has a kasra, and the letter after it has a fatha, which is the noon. And muslimayni, muthanna, the secret of it is the letter before the ya would have a what? A fatha, and the letter after the ya would have a kasra. Let's use other examples. For example, we have al-qalam. Al-qalam. What does al-qalam mean? Al-qalam means one pen, isn't it? If I want to say two pens, I would say al-qalamani. أليس كذلك? Al-qalamani. Or this is when it's in a state of rafa, isn't it? Lakin in a state of nasb, what would I say? Al-qalamaini, state of nasb and jar. Al-qalamaini, al-qalamaini. Let's use a word that will look similar to the muthanna and the jam'ul mudhakkar salim. For example, we have at-ta'ib. What does at-ta'ib mean? At-ta'ib means a person who is a repenter, the one who repented. At-ta'ib. Now when you have at-ta'ibani, 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 two repenters in a state of rafa, and at-ta'ibaini. Let me just, at-ta'ibaini. I did not include the ya here. At-ta'ibaini, na'am. Lakin you have at-ta'i, التائبون التائبون التائبين التائبين and التائبين again. In both, this one is for both while in a state of jar and nasb. What's the difference between the two? The ba has a kasra before the ya and the noon has a fatha after the ya. And in this case, the ba has a fatha before the ya and the noon has a kasra after the ya. Notice the difference? At-ta'ibayni for the muthanna, at-ta'ibina for the jam'ul mudhakkar as-salim. That's the difference between the two. Like in the i'rab, they look similar. Now coming to the i'rab of al-af'al al-khamsa, the i'rab of al-af'al al-khamsa, look at this. I made it clear here. When in a state of rafa', the i'rab of it is by the remaining of the noon. That's why you say وَعَلَامَةُ رَفْعِهِ, and it being in a state of rafa' ثُبُوتُ النُّونِ. ثُبُوتُ النُّونِ. So if we have يَفْعَلُونَ, I'll use just يَفْعَلُونَ as one example so it can be very clear. يَفْعَلُونَ. You would say وَعَلَامَةُ رَفْعِهِ ثُبُوتُ النُّونِ. The noon remaining. Okay, the noon doesn't go anywhere. The noon remains. Lakin then you ask, but Ustad, what happened that the waw is not the i'rab in this case, while it looks similar to that of the muthanna maybe, or maybe the jam'ul mudhakkar salim. They look quite similar. That's a very good question. However, before we go any further, I want us to look at it when it's in a state of nasb and jazm. Does a verb come into a state of jar? Can a verb be in a state of jar? No, it cannot be in a state of jar. But it is in a state of jazm. Similar to that of the noun, it cannot be in a state of jazm. It has to be in a state of jar. أليس كذلك? It's as simple as that. So لذلك you find that either whether it's in a state of nasb or jazm, you will find that this same يفعلون becomes يفعلوا. So in this case, the i'rab of it, we said with huruf. Remember, we said the i'rab with letters, and one of them is the noon. The noon either remains, exists, or the noon is omitted. حذف النون حذف النون وعلامة نصبه أو جزمه. حذف النون, omitting the noon, the omission of the noon. That's how you write it. That's how the i'rab looks like, insha'Allah ta'ala. I don't want to bombard you with more, otherwise it will be overwhelming, as you can see. This is already enough for now. Lakin, as we move along, bi'idhnillahi al-kareem, as I always like to say, as we move along, bi'idhnillahi al-kareem, you'll notice that these concepts that you've covered, they will be required from you in the next half of the book. Because whatever comes after this is the next half of the book. The next half of the text only covers everything of what you've done from the beginning to now. Bear that in mind. And you notice we're literally just moving back. So if you haven't done the previous classes, or you've done so but you've forgotten concepts, I advise you to revise, go through the notes, either subscribe to our mailing list or go to Telegram to subscribe on our Telegram group, inshallah ta'ala. Over there you will get notifications, you'll receive the notes, you can use them to your advantage. Go through these lessons. It's not costing you anything. Trust me, just your time. Spare your time to revise, bi'idhnillahi al-kareem. However, if you want you want to study literally with first-hand assistance, having the teacher being with you, helping you with corrections, guiding you throughout, having a community that is thriving together, you're thriving together with, in order to develop your language speaking wise, writing wise, reading wise, until you develop to a position where you don't read with harakat anymore, then do subscribe, do look into our to the link and click the link below, inshallah ta'ala. And in the link you will find that over there we have a new cohort coming up, and you could be one of them, inshallah ta'ala. You could be one of them, bi'idhnillahi al-kareem. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.